Alright, the final series of round 1, HSA and Byron the Well. So, game 1, HSA, DOA, Ho-Oh. We know this matchup by now if you've been following. DOA is probably going to try to spike, and Ho-Oh is just going to Sacred Fire, hope to get a burn. And if DOA's team really struggles to threaten out Ho-Oh, then it might just go for an attack just to knock it from 100 into that 60-70 range, which goes a long way. Even then, often not enough, because Ho-Oh tanks a lot of Dracos, but for something like Latios it'd be enough. But ideally you have, at this point, since Ho-Oh is so common and such a threat, then you should be prepared for it. It shouldn't be a surprise that you scramble to deal with anymore. Before you could kind of say, oh, well, if I face a Ho-Oh, I'll just play around it. But now, with how much is being spammed, that's not a good risk to be taking in the team builder. Just going to unnecessarily put you behind. So if you have something like a Kyogre, then that's great. Now the spikes, if Ho-Oh is paired with Dialga, then yes, it's immediately going to be helpful. But if they have a Lottie, then you have to account for that. Well, you have to account for that anyway, but especially early in the game, because Lottie's going to switch in, and Kyogre, I mean, even if you ruin it with T-Wave, that might be part of your plan. But then again, Ho-Oh might stay in Brave Bird if it's Pasho, so something else to consider. You have to really be careful about around Ho-Oh now. And you have to be careful of the fact that your spikes aren't going to necessarily get you anywhere in the first few turns if their answer is a Lottie. And before you get rocks back up, or before you get rocks up in the first place, then Ho-Oh might come back in. It might be tough for you to get rocks in the first place since Dialga's not a perfect Latios switch exactly. And Ho-Oh can just be ruinous on its own. And I am, really pleased to see this development. So we will see how prepared HSA is. So the first turn is indeed a spike. Byron goes for Sacred Fire, does not miss, and does not burn. So HSA just going for the second layer, so that's going to help a lot. Byron makes a good move, goes for Brave Bird, just in case Kyogre gets cheeky and wants to switch in. Oh, and also reveals Leftovers. So now Kyogre knows that it's definitely scaring the Ho-Oh out and doesn't have to fear Pasho. And if it has T-Wave, it can even use that freely, because if you T-Wave Ho-Oh, then, I mean, that's fine. So Latios does come in, so classic example of that. And Water Spout does a big chunk, but it's not gonna to a KO, so that does look like a Scarf Kyogre. So Latios recovers, and since Latios is A, weaker than Latios, and B, forced to recover on that turn, then Dialga can come in and get the rocks up. So that's a good way of being prepared against Ho-Oh if you're leading off with something like DOA that doesn't exactly deal with it too well. Because if Latios came in, then at least it would be taking a lot more than from Water Spout. So that would be worth the trade-off of them getting to bombard your team with a Draco Meteor. So in comes Dialga, and against Latios, it is much more effective in this one-on-one. So here comes Fori from Byron, threatening to spin right away. And in rain, then it is not going to fear Fire Blast. And yeah, this Dialga is going to be running Thunder anyway, because it's on a Kyogre offense team. So Fori can at least get up hazards. It's doubtful that HSA is just going to let him spin right away. That would be an immense waste, especially because he's got 2 layers of spikes and rocks. But at the same time, Byron is not going to even be tempted to go for the spin, because that would also be a waste to just fall behind further. He's got to get some sort of hazard pressure of his own in return. And it's not like spinning is a real priority, because when you lead Ho-Oh, then you accept that sometimes you're not going to be able to get the most out of it mid-game. It's supposed to be an early game bruiser, gets you off to a good start, and it's still threatening from 50, so prioritize hazards and make the rest of your team more effective. So plus it's lefties, so it might even be protect. And HSA makes a great move. He knows he took into account exactly that look, Byron's needs some hazards to not fall behind, to help out his other teammates, and he's not going to just haplessly spin into Giratina. So he roars to get some more hazard damage and to maybe scout some of the 3 unrevealed Pokemon on Byron's team. That could be critical. And dragging in Ho-Oh in rain is also pretty awesome. So that was a great move from HSA. He might also just not have. He might be one of those offensive teams that says, I don't need Giratina, because most people aren't going to even bother to try to spin. I mean, Giratina does more than spin blocking, but it's a concession you can potentially make if you're looking to make your team speedier. That would be the main thing. But yeah, so even if he has a Giratina, then that was a great move. So, I mean, risky, and now we see something really cool that we have not seen before, as Ho-Oh uses Sunny Day and drops Draco. It drops Thunder accuracy to 50 and removes the rain, and now its Sacred Fire is going to be really powerful. And so that's really cool. I love to see that. That is what this tournament exists for, so we can see stuff like that. Now, I don't know what the rest of the set is. I mean, or the last move, rather. It could be Roost, Protect, Earthquake, who knows? I mean, Sunny Day just could be a filler move. But he's also got the leftovers, so part of me thinks maybe there's something else going on with it. So now if Kyogre wants to switch in and get the rain back up, it's going to take, Sacred Fire, or, if Byron's really on his predicting game, then he might Brave Bird, and it's poison, so it's going to be taking 12.5. So, nope, Ho just plays it straight, goes for the Sacred Fire, which does not do a lot of damage, so that makes me think probably more bulk invested on the Ho-Oh, because that would normally do, well, let me pull out the calc, because I might be confusing it with band damage in Sun, but I'm also, I also don't want to underrate Dialga's, base defense, which is pretty huge. So defensive, bulk up. So Sacred Fire, yeah, that's just banded or, regular in Sun. So yeah, that is definitely not an adamant max attack Ho-Oh. Yeah, that Dialga could have some defense EVs. For sure. I mean, it's a good investment on Dialga because you already are really good at taking EQs just naturally with max HP, and a few defense EVs go a long way. Suddenly Chomp's just not finishing you off even after spikes or something. But you would need way too many defense EVs, and that's not what Dialga is really meant to do. You would need too many defense EVs to drop the Sacred Fire to that low of a range. So yeah, that Ho does not have a lot of attack investment. And Roar, and now Fori comes back in, and funnily enough, it's even better against this Dialga in Sun, because now he can't even pressure with Thunder. So, the question is, does Byron think that HSA was just, bluffing not having Giratina and wanted to take advantage of the very obvious hazard rather than playing it more passively? Or was that a sign of, oh, I don't actually have Giratina, and I just need to get as much hazard damage as I can now? Because there is very little downside to going to Giratina on that turn, simply because it's not like Giratina is just a passive spin blocker. It's also going to threaten a lot of Pokemon, like pretty much the entire tier, with rocks and 2 layers of spikes. So that might be, it was a good move even if you do have a Giratina, just to keep your opponent on his toes. In fact, even if you did have a Giratina, then now would be the perfect time to switch to it, because now is when Byron is going to be most tempted to spin, because you've planted the idea in his head that you don't have a Giratina. So I think Byron, either way, is going to spin here, and if HSA has Giratina, he goes for it. He goes to it now. But he spins, and Byron HSA roars again. Yeah, so I really think he does just not have Giratina, and he roars Ho-Oh back in without rocks, and it's gaining more and more lefties, and Sun is still up. So now here comes another Sacred Fire, and this one burns. A third burns, and rocks go up, but Dialga's going down. And Byron Brave Birds to finish it off to make sure Kyogre can't switch in for free. So HSA, there is, like I said, there is definitely merit to dropping Giratina on these offense teams. But you got to be careful around the potential for Fori to really mess your day up. So, but even if you did have a Giratina, then that first roar was a good move for reasons already mentioned. So I won't repeat myself more. I have a problem with that, I know. Anyway, so Kyogre comes back in, and Lottie does not love taking Ice Beams with rocks up. So that's the good news for HSA, is that he does have rocks again, and he's not going to be able to protect them long term. A spin going off after your hazard setters have gone down is just brutal, but he's still got a lot of pressure, and if he's dropping Giratina, then he's probably got a lot of offensive firepower in the back. So Byron's team is still very healthy, though. That's the main problem. Ho-Oh's at good health, Fori's in decent health, Lottie's at full, and then there's going to be a Groudon almost surely, and then a Giratina, and then something fast like a Scarf Dialga. So That's the most standard way to do it. So in comes Latias because it's pretty safe even against Scarf Ice. Wolf, take it back. That might be a modest Scarf Kyogre because that one does a lot of damage. That's another byproduct of Latias going faster and stronger because they used to like if you see the let me just show you the standard old Lati set, with a lot of. See, it has the 112 HP EVs, and that really does make a big difference. And now they're going like max special attack, max speed. So, but okay, so no, that might just be a timid Specs Kyogre. My head calcs are really off. But because the Water Spout did, oh yeah, that's no, it did 40. No, wait, no. Okay, let me try and not swallow my words as I say 16 things at once. Yeah, the Water Spout did 45, not a 55, and so I was not crazy about that. So modest Water Spout doing 45. So it is just modest Water Spout against Latias, and the Ice Beam is doing because this Ice Beam did 55. So and that should never do 55 to Latias, even with modest 53 max. So, I don't know, maybe it's like Expert Belt or something, or like Wise Glasses. Because Water Spout did 45, so that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, because Wise Glasses, yeah, that would make it possible for 45. And Expert Belts, sorry, you're not seeing the calc here, yeah, so, see, that's what we've got with 0 boost, and then with Wise Glasses, we've got this much. Oh no, yeah, you still see the Ice Beam, and with Expert Belt, then we've got that would be a very low Expert Belt roll, or like maybe it's timid Expert Belt or something. Now Expert Belt is not an item you would usually consider on Kyogre, but I mean the super effective Thunder hit would be nice. And boosting all your moves, like even hitting Dialga with resisted Water Spout if it's boosted by Wide Lens is nice. And you also give yourself boosts on Ice Beams and Thunder, so I mean it's possible that this is just Wide Lens or something. But yeah, so like timid Expert Belts or modest Wise Glasses seem the most possible routes, because otherwise I just don't know what it could be that that's doing 55 to Latias. So, whoops, let me fix the dimensions. So Latias is going to be faster. I mean, Modest was already suggested with the Water Spout, but yeah, this is going to be faster. And so definitely not Scarf. Otherwise, I would have really thought that something was broken. Maybe like Byron accidentally dropped his IVs or something silly like that. Yeah, so Latias is going to recover, and HSA is going to stay in and do 58. Wow, so that's... that's the max roll for for modest Wise Glasses. So, yeah, that's doing a lot. Let's see if he sticks it out here, because Kyogre is bulky, and if he can take down the Latias. Either way, even if he... Well, the thing is that with Dialga down, he probably can't switch into Latias too well. So, and he just wants to do as much damage as he can. Rather than switching around and taking a lot of damage and not doing damage in return. So good move from HSA, just minimizing how much he's got to deal with, especially because Latias probably can't hit it too hard. So and the third Ice Beam crits. So with crit and freeze, Ice Beam is a dangerous move. And now HSA has taken out the Latias. So in comes, I'm just going to make sure again that couldn't have been like timid Specs or something. Just because now that would make sense. I guess it's timid Specs against a very bulky Latias. I hadn't considered that. And that makes a lot more sense, because that has to be like a max HP Latias, though, for Water Spout to do 45. And you don't see max HP Latias too much. So yeah, it has to be timid. Okay, so now we know for sure. Timid Specs Kyogre, because I was thinking there's no way that can be choice, but then he just sent... well, he knows his Latias spread, so he knows that it's Specs more than the onlooker might assume. And so that's why he sent Fori into it after so confidently. So, yeah, Water Spout, timid, because if it's modest, then it's doing 49 roughly to, let me just, yeah, so that's modest, what's it called? And this is timid. So he low rolled the first water spout against this max HP Latias. And then the ice beams were all doing, in the 50s. So that's timid specs. So yeah, what was the lowest it did? Like 55? Yeah, okay. So it was timid specs because modest specs would have did 56 minimum with ice beam. So we know it's timid specs ogre now. So that's big to know. We know that means it's also going to outspeed Ho-Oh in a one-on-one if it comes down to it. Because since that Ho-Oh does not run a lot of attack, I'm assuming it's focusing on bulk and probably not on a lot of speed. So even if it's even if it were a slower Kyogre, then Kyogre was going to outspeed it, most likely. But with its timid, then it's running all the speed EVs, not just settling and then throwing into bulk, which can be useful, but not if you're going timid. You got to make use of that. Anyway, so Wob comes in on Fori's very telegraphed spin, gets rid of the rocks, and now Ho-Oh is going to be a nightmare to deal with. So, Fori Protect, so it's running Toxic Protect, I assume, or T-Spike. Well, that's rare. You usually see Spike, Spin, Protect, Toxic, but T-Spike, I mean, I've done that myself a long time ago on a team that really just prioritized poisoning everything as opposed to just getting spikes, just so you could more instantly start Protect stalling, as opposed to having to actively deal with them, even if you had spikes down. So I like that approach from Byron a lot. It's rare, but that means he really knows what's best for his team, because it would be very easy for him to just slap spikes on and then toxic stuff. But yeah, really nicely done there. He protects just so he doesn't. Well, I guess that would rack up more poison damage before Wob can encore him, so you force it to be weaker for later on. So I guess that's nice. And I guess he doesn't need to lock into T-Spikes again. And so Wob safeguards on the Protect, and rather than encore, okay, so it's not even a Toxic Blast, it is Payback. So yeah, rather than lock into T-Spikes or something, then he Paybacks, and if Wob decides to counter that, then so be it. Losing Fori after it's gotten the spin off on your Ho-Oh team and they can't get rocks back up is pretty great. But now HSA switches to Palkia. Could be, I mean, the last Pokemon here has to be some sort of non-choiced wall breaker, I assume. So it could be Palkia and the last could be a Scarfer, or it could be the other way around. Palkia's the Scarfer, and yeah. Because if Palkia's the Scarfer, then it's probably not going to get anywhere, because, assume the Groudon is Spadef, and there could even be a Heatran. Well, Heatran doesn't want to come into the Hydro here. Actually, probably most things don't want to switch into Hydro here, because Tina-O would be like the best bet. Or like regular Giratina, since he's so dedicated to the T-Spikes cause that he might want to do sub-protect shenanigans with that. But either way, Tina would be a good middle ground here, although it's still not an ideal switch. And Palkia is switching in with the T-Spikes up. So here's a great example of Wob Safeguard really just helping even in the face of T-Spikes. T-Spikes are so powerful in this here, they could almost have their own video. But yeah, and you're always looking for ways around them, usually Lum, or like sometimes people even use Quillfish, but Safeguard Wob is pretty cool. So Payback, and Byron does not protect for lefties or anything, he just goes right to Groudon to, and HSA goes for a Spatial Rend and crits and does a lot. So Spadef Groudon for sure, not a Specs Palk or anything. Could be Lustrous Orb, but we also don't know the Groudon spread exactly. So Groudon protects, and Palkia reveals that it is in fact not choiced. So he was looking to get Fori coming back in on the supposed choice Spatial Rend. Now I get that, because afterwards he could probably pivot into Ho-Oh on the Fire Blast, and which would be pretty safe because he's not going to just stand and spam Spatial Rend against Fori. So and if he's not choiced, then so I get that was a good move on HSA's end, trying to catch it on the switch, because not every defensive Groudon runs Protect. So it was going to be really hard to like Spatial Rend on the potential Protect, and then go, which he might not even have, and then go back to Forest. So that was a tough call to make, but it was. And now Heatran comes in, and great move from HSA, and Hydroing. I mean, looking for Ho-Oh, trying to absorb Spatial or Fire Blast, and he gets the very likely Heatran as well. So a very nice move, and he does nail Heatran for a good chunk, even in Sun. Now, maybe we can figure out if it's Lustrous or Haben. So just from the damage. I'm guessing it's going to be Haben, but just because Lustrous Palkia is stupid levels of strong. But yeah, in Sun, yeah, okay, so it did what, 44? Yeah, so Lustrous would have done 47 minimum, so it is Haben. So now Kyogre comes back in. Every time Kyogre switches in, then it takes more damage, but Groudon has also been chunked, so, you know, Weather War. But next time Palkia comes in, it also gets poisoned. So, unless Wob can safeguard again, which is not the most unreasonable thing because it's still in good health, but still dangerous. The more pressing thing is that, well, Kyogre is now at 51, and it's going to be at 39 after Heatran's next Protect, but it's going to throw out some Specs Water moves here, and if there's not a second, I mean, I'm sure there is a second Water Resist in one of the Giratinas, but it's still going to, you know, hurt. HSA might want to double out here. No, he just goes to Fortress because he does not, that's a good move, just preserving, because if he says, look, Fortress isn't going to be that useful and I want to preserve my last, then, you know, smart move. So it goes down to the Surf, Byron goes to Groudon, replaces the Sun, places it with Sun, and then doubles out to Mewtwo. So great move, you know, weakening the Surf and then, you know, not falling victim to a potential, you know, line of passivity, just, you know, protecting all over the place, and because, you know, that would, he's out in front, I mean, with the Unrevealed Last, which is almost surely going to be a Scarfer, which, you know, can be handled with all the Bulk and Protect and T-Spikes going around. But the way he might give HSA room to come back is if he starts being really predictable and really passive and not doing anything. So the Mewtwo switch was a much more aggressive route. So I like the inclusion of Mewtwo here. I mean, it is really dependent on Latias to absorb water moves. But even with a Spadef Protect Groudon, you know, helping out and weakening them, it's still tough. But with good play, then Mewtwo's high speed without relying on a Scarfer, you know, if it was Dialga or a Giratina, you know, it gives that good speed and wall breaking potential without hinging on any sort of choice item. It's got a lot of flexibility. It can even go defensive and still be a good wall breaker. That's the beauty of Mewtwo. So. And it does have Taunt, so Wobbuffet cannot do anything to it, and it's poison, so no encoring, no safeguarding, and now Mewtwo's just going to spam. I mean, he could just keep spamming Taunt until the cows come home, so he doesn't get Mirror Coated. But if his attacking move is Aura Sphere, so I don't know if he's like Taunt. I assume he's Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Recover, and Aura Sphere specifically, so he doesn't get walled by Heatran, because opposing Heatran does look quite annoying for that team. And so, good inclusion in there. And he's just gonna, he can Aura Sphere Wob because, as you saw, the Mirror Coat does approximately zilch. So Kyogre comes in on the Taunt, or I guess he was hoping that he would just, yeah, that was a good move because he was expecting Taunt so he wouldn't get repeatedly Mirror Coated. But, you know, Kyogre's at 14 now, and yes, you know, very much on a timer. And the last is in fact Chomp, so it's looking scarfed. And Mewtwo just tries to finish the Kyogre off, but this Scarf Chomp is not beating this Mewtwo one-on-one. So he stays in, outrages, just goes for Aura Sphere. Good move, you know, not because that's gonna run out its clock faster, even if it does, even if it is Scarf, and if it's not, then you don't, you know, recover on the first turn unnecessarily. Because now you just, you know, scouted its move, and now you can absorb it with Heatran, no problem. So good move from Byron there as Garchomp, you know, not being too passive, not, you know, controlling what you can as opposed to trying to make, you know, educated whatevers. So he roars the Wob out. That's that can't be encored because it has negative priority, and Safeguard goes up, but Kyogre's already poisoned and it's going to fall to a KO. But he does get the Safeguard up and switches to Palkia. So great move. He's still somewhat in it. It's going to be tough though because, well, all Byron has to do, actually it's not going to be that easy. I think he has to sack Heatran here and then go to Groudon and then, you know, probably sack Ho-Oh and then go to Mewtwo. Yeah, okay, that's probably going to get the game done. So that way, Kyogre, I mean, it's still not super over because if Kyogre comes in after a Wob sack, then it could just double right to Palkia and come back in to replace the Sun with Rain one more time. So it's not necessarily next time Kyogre comes in, it's KO'd. It can be Wob gets sacked, Kyogre comes in, switches to Palkia against Mewtwo or something, and then Palkia's in again, and then it can replace the Sun with Rain once more. And Byron does not have infinite sacks to keep replacing it. So he could still potentially bring it back, amazingly enough. So he's going to protect here just to, try to waste some PP. That might help out, especially because Ho-Oh and Mewtwo both have pressure. So Hydro, and he does have to sack the Heatran. So good move. Now he's got to go to Groudon. He's got to protect. And the protect here is quite riskless because... Actually, well, no, yeah, he has to protect because otherwise Palky's going to KO it, and he needs to get lefties. And because there's no rush to sack the Ho-Oh. Because if Kyogre comes in here, it's gone. If Wob comes in on the Groudon, then he just gets up rocks. And if Kyogre switches in, the only way Kyogre survives is if it switches in after a KO. So Groudon protects here, and if he switches to Kyogre, great, he's won the game. If he switches to Wob, great, he's won the game. So he protects 100% here, and absolutely he does. And Palkia goes for a Fire Blast, good move, not wasting Spatial, because he doesn't need Fire Blast for these others. I mean, I guess it might be nice against Mewtwo, but I mean, Spatial Rain's going to do the job. So he goes for Hydro. He doesn't sack the Ho-Oh, interestingly enough, and that's going to make it more Well, I get, because now the Rain goes up, and now Rain Hydro. Yeah, I don't know if that was the move. I think you just go to Ho-Oh. I mean, I don't know what the bulk is, but I mean, I assume it has a lot because of how little it did to, what's it called? Dialga with the Sacred Fire. So Hydro and Sun, yeah, so Spatial Rend would have been doing nothing. It would not have been 2-KOing, just a max HP Ho-Oh from 80. Hydro from 80, I mean, this would not 2-KO through lefties. So, yeah, and it might not even 2-KO period. And then you get the big Brave Bird on it, and, then Mewtwo has a much easier time stalling it out, and you get to replace the Sun with Rain one more time. And it still would have been tough, but I don't think sacking Groudon was the move. So, in comes Ho-Oh now. And, I guess Ho-Oh can still... Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Alright, that was a very smart move by Byron then. If the Ho-Oh didn't have sub, then I think it was definitely a mistake. But now he knows Palky's not going to stay, and he's going to try and permanently replace the Sun with Rain. And so he gets behind the sub, and he drops Wob with a Sunny Sacred Fire. So, and now Kyogre comes in, and Ho-Oh just subs again. But it's still not over because, yes, Ho-Oh is going to have a... Well, because Kyogre doesn't have a... Well, no, I don't think there's any way Palkia can survive Poison, Brave Bird, and Aura Sphere. So, I think Byron has locked this one up. So that was very nicely done. Very nicely planned. And he knew he could do that because he knew he had sub, which, you can't really expect alongside Sunny Day. So very, very cool. He goes for Thunder, guaranteeing, and he doesn't even have to hit Brave Bird, so Palkia has to take 2 rounds of poison before it even takes the Brave Bird. Actually, he has to take 3 because he subs again, so really nicely done, and now Ho-Oh is going to win the game, so very, very nice first game of this series. Loved it. So, great finish, and now Byron leads 1-0. So, Dio Speed, Dialga. Dialga, the anti-Kyogre lead. I like it. Get up rocks early. You can try to get up rocks on DOS, or you can just attack it if you just want to melt it on the first turn, a la Kyogre. You need a boosted Draco for that, but still. You could also try T-Wave, but you might just thought against Lum. And he goes for Dragon Pulse, which does not too well. I will calc that just so I don't make any foolish assumptions. I think if you're going to lead with a Specs Dialga, though, you're probably going to Draco Deoxys on the first turn. So just based off of that, I'm going to say it's not Specs Dialga, because Specs Pulse is probably not going to get the job done. And he switches out of Guard, so no rocks, so that's surprising. I wonder, well, Specs, oh, I already put it on the other side. So Uber Wish support. So yeah, Dragon Pulse does do. I guess he is Specs Dialga lead. Well, I mean it did 23, so it could be like Timid Specs, or just like the way Showdown rounds it. So I guess he is leading off with Specs Dialga. I don't know why he didn't Draco then. Assuming this is a max bet after Jirachi, which it definitely is. So that is in fact Specs Dialga lead, but I don't know why he didn't Draco. I'll say it again because that is much better. Because if it winds up being Sash, then you're gonna be locked into a Specs Dragon move anyway. It's gonna be very easy to chase you out after. So and the whole idea is so you OHKO bulky DOSs, whereas Specs Dragon Pulse is not gonna do that. Especially if it's timid, as the role might suggest. So, Dracoing the Jirachi would have been... Specs Draco against Jirachi, you see this calc here. And if you're timid, you're doing a minimum of 34 and upwards of, maybe you hit 40. Lefty is going to cancel it out, but it's better than dinking it with Dragon Pulse. So I think that would have been a much better move. And now he U-turns out of the Chomp, brings DOS back in, rocks very fast. So he might just be a super fast DOA that outspeeds even Scarf Chomp. Only HSA knows that, and the EQ does. Well, I think he has a lot of bulk because otherwise EQ would have been close to dropping it. So in comes Tina O, and it's a good move because from full it will not die to a Chomp Outrage because Tina O is pretty crazy bulky even without investment. So a good move, and if it is Scarf, as so many Chomps are, then you get a free Draco on something with Rocks and Spikes up. Worst case, you take out the Chomp, and since Chomp is eternally threatening to Ubers teams that aren't packing like Sun Cress and Sun Lugia and Lugia, then yeah, it would be good to take it out. So Byron has to pivot into Magnezone, not a great sign. So he's definitely running some major Dragon spam here with... Thing is, the zone, it's good at trapping things like Dialga and Skarmory and even Fori, but when the Jirachi U-turns, then not so much luck. But if he gets up hazards, then Specs Dialga runs train, especially if it's timid, meaning it's getting the jump on its fellow base 90s. So in comes HSA's own Dialga into the zone. Zone is a circumstantial Dialga trapper. And, Dialga comes in, and now it's going to scare it out with, any move, really. Fire, Draco. Oh, he goes for the fire move, and Byron just explodes. He doesn't T-Wave or HP Ground or anything. I don't know why that is, because Zone pretty much exists in Ubers to HP Ground Dialga. So if, the Dialga switches into you, I don't know why you wouldn't take that opportunity and just explode. But I guess maybe he's trying something else with his... moveset, but I don't know what other hidden power you'd run. I guess fire if you're really trying to stop Fori, but rain and thunder are generally going to get the job done mostly similarly. So I don't know why, but I don't know. This is why the other perspectives, and I am going to gather all the perspectives of the players after this tournament. But for now we just have our assumptions. So in comes a big Specs. Ooh, that sucks. That sucks a whole lot. As he does not switch to Jirachi, maybe he was afraid of the Fire Blast and wanted to preserve, because he knows he's facing Dragon Spam, so he wants to preserve his steel. Byron reads that nicely and just goes for a Specs Draco and does not connect and eats the Dragon Pulse. And now HSA knows he's got the free switch to, good lord, 40. Yeah, so, I say free, took 40, but now he's forced out and takes the U-turn, and we don't know how bulky that Dialga is, but it could be assumed that it's going to be offensive because running a support Dialga and a support Jirachi is pretty redundant, and already running a support Pokemon on like Jirachi on an offensive team that leads off with Dio speed is already not something you always see, so you're not going to be wanting to run two of them. So with Fire Blast and Dragon Pulse, it's probably just an offensive Dialga with lefties, which is a great set, and I like seeing it. But it also means that, look at that, 100 versus 111 minimum or whatever it was. So yeah, even against max HP, then it was getting dropped from that range, and I don't think it was defensive. So so in comes Chomp again on the turn. So the reason Jirachi is a great support poke on these teams is because it what's it called? It has U-turn to keep momentum. So you switch into a Draco, and rather than just like let in a big threat for free, you U-turn and bring your big guns in. It's the perfect defense turning into offense Pokemon. So Dialga comes into Dialga comes into Chomp because it can live in EQ if it's bulky. And Byron is going to be tempted to Outrage here, so great move from HSA drawing the Outrage because he knows he doesn't want to just switch to Giratina on Outrage and then just do nothing. So that was a tough turn for both players. You don't want to EQ into Tina O and just fall even further behind than you already are. So good move, and he's just going to finish it off with a pulse. Now, that move was possible because of the Draco miss on this Dialga, so that is really unfortunate. That sucks a lot. So here comes the Dialga once again, probably just going to... it's going to Draco, and good lord, that does even 41, so it might be modest after all, or it just might not be max speed F Jirachi. Protect might launch it out of range, though. And in fact, probably is, because... the second one misses, too. That sucks a lot. Especially defensive, so, from -2... Yeah, if it did 41, that's definitely modest. Or, not max special defense, whatever. So, yeah, -2, it was... I guess it could have KO'd, depending on the natures and how much speed F it was running. Like, if it's running some speed EV, so... Yeah, could have KO'd the Jirachi there potentially, especially because it's not going to be at a full 22, because that's just showdown rounding up. So I guess he could have KO'd there, but now it wishes, and it's like he didn't touch it at all. So in comes Ray for more dragon fun, and HSA makes a great move, and U-turns rather than just protecting and being passive and letting Byron back into it. He's like, you know what, I don't need to bring Jirachi back up to full health. It would probably be better if I just, I could wish up back to Dialga, which is amazing, and I can keep up offensive momentum, and even more crucially, not give him any opportunities for offensive momentum. So very nicely done there, and Dialga's back at full and is going to claim another KO basically, and that KO winds up being Byron's Dialga, which wound up doing no damage effectively to the Dialga, which really sucks. And now Latios comes in. It's not going to KO, and it's going to get KO'd in return. But it Calm Minds, and that lets its Draco push, because when you have Soldu and Calm Mind, then your Draco KOs everything, including even very bulky Dialga. Well, I think it's somewhat of a roll, but if it's max special defense. But it's not going to be max special defense. That's the whole point. And, so it's not Draco on HSA's end. It's just Dragon Ball, so last can be like Thunder and Brick Break or something. So, or, T-Wave. Well, I think it probably would have used T-Wave there if it had it. But, yeah, so Thunder and then Brick Break, or, yeah, I don't think it would have locked into Outrage necessarily if it had it. But either way, or Earth Power also might be possible, or Aura Sphere. Anyway, so Pulse wouldn't have KO'd even without, but Latios, Draco into -2 Draco. But then again, if Jirachi's there, then you can just absorb a Draco with it and let it get KO'd, and then Dialga comes back in. So, and Sub, that sucks. And the Roar, so good placement of Roar on that team. That really, an offensive Dialga that can just focus on just attacking and then roaring and taking everything down, as opposed to relying on it for rocks. I mean, he also might have a double rock setup here. That would be cool. Like if he can only choose one hazard with DOS, he goes for spikes, and he just has the rocks Dialga in the back. And if he gets rocks and spikes with Deoxys, he has that opportunity. Then his Dialga can just focus on being an offensive threat. So that's really cool. So I like that. I still think it's a more offensively leaning Dialga because it does have the Jirachi as support. But, I mean, either way, it's a very cool setup. And the Roar there is great. It was a really cool idea from Byron, because he assumed, okay, he's going to sack the Jirachi, and then he's going to revenge kill with Giratina's Shadow Sneak. And by subbing there, then you would have taken out the Jirachi and then taken out the Giratina as it broke the sub. And then HSA would have been forced to lock into something fat, unless he's got a Darkrai or something. Then there's a good chance he would have had to lock into something with a Scarfer, and that's exploitable. And maybe he could have come back because he would have gotten 2 KOs before the revenge killing opportunity for Latios even revealed itself. And unfortunately, the Dialga does have Roar, which he wasn't expecting. I mean, I wasn't expecting it either, because you see Dragon Pulse and Fire Blast, and you think, oh, it's an offensive Dialga. I mean, Roar is very possible on an all-out offensive Dialga, but it's not likely. And it seemed likelier that he was just going to sack the Jirachi to the... And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't. I mean, Roar there is cool, but you would think that it would have been more worthwhile to sack the Jirachi and revenge with Giratina. It's not like sub is expected at all. I don't know why. Yeah, because I guess if he thought he was gonna Calm Mind again, that would still just KO the Jirachi if he Calm Minded again or something. There's no way to predict sub, And yeah, I don't know. I was surprised that he was willing to risk the full health Dialga to the. I guess, I mean, because look, even like, yeah, Spadef Dialga, even if it is max Spadef, which I still have a tough time believing, then it's still a 50% chance to Oko. I don't know why you would, and you're not KOing it in return either. So, and it's much better to keep a full Dialga if you can help it than sack rather than a 28% Jirachi. So I don't know. That was surprising, but I mean it worked out. But that felt more like, I don't want to say a fluke, but I don't think it should have worked out necessarily. And it was just kind of lucky that Byron had a sub on the Latios, which is never seen. I mean, Calm Mind Latios is seen, but it's usually got Recover or second Dragon Stab and Dragon Pulse at the back. But that's the way it went down, and it was what little we have seen from these teams, because 2 incomplete ones here, has been very cool. So now we go on to game 3. Tentacruel lead, Metagross lead. So Metagross is a very cool lead in Ubers because it's a good rocker, and with Meteor Mash and Bullet Punch, it's very good at limiting stuff to 1 layer. So Tentacruel, the thing is with Metagross is that you can't run. Well, you have the Rocks dilemma, and you also can't run both EQ and Explosion. But honestly, I think the few times I've run a Metagross lead in Ubers, I haven't even run Explosion, because everyone is so gung-ho on switching Giratina into it that you don't really want to do it, So, yeah, just T-Spikes. But it looks like this Metagross has Explosion over EQ. So he's not going to be able to punish the Tentacruel with the potential Oko, or at the very least, Bullet Punch range. As T-Spikes go down and Mash is going to 3 KO it. And the problem is more so that with Metagross you generally run, I mean you can run Lum for Darkrai, but I think Sash is also pretty reliable, so you don't have to switch out of Kyogre. And yeah, you can even run Jolly and get the jump on a lot of Kyogres. It's pretty awesome. And well, you don't necessarily need to run Sashtar, but you can Meteor Mash and then Rocks on Sashtar as opposed to being forced into Bullet Punch or risking, it KOing you as you try to Rocks and be slower. So yeah, definitely expect Jolly. But yeah, this Tentacruel can now break the potential Sash, and I definitely think that is Sash because that Hydro did a lot. If you're running Lum, then you don't need to run Speed EVs as much. You want to run a lot of bulk, and with Sash you don't really need bulk. I mean, it's not a hard science that the Lum doesn't want speed, but you generally want it. You generally want the bulk rather, because you're going with Darkrai one-on-one. With Sash you don't really need it as much. So now Tentacruel is going to take the second Mash, and it threatens a KO with Hydro, so Bullet Punch is very forced. And so Byron's in a tough spot, and he does go for BP. But the BP is not all bad. Because the BP hits Kyogre, and doesn't do very much, but it does reveal the item at least, and it reveals that it is leftovers. So, I mean, the threat of T-Wave to hit a Lottie Twin is unfortunate, and HSA makes an interesting move there, and I think what I'm expecting his rationale was, he knows his Kyogre is slow, and he does not want to get boomed on by a Jolly Metagross. Because if you're expecting a Kyogre answer to come in there, you're expecting Latios or Dialga. Not exactly Pokemon you want to double switch Giratina into at all. So he was not looking to catch a Kyogre answer there. He was looking to absorb a faster boom. But Byron just goes, alright, it's probably a slower Kyogre in the 244-ish range, 250 max, and I'm Jolly Metagross, and I need Rocks. So he would rather get Rocks and then follow up against the Kyogre with something else, rather than not have Rocks the whole game, and, just potentially boom into nothing. Anyway, like, it didn't have to be Giratina even, it could have been a Steel, so... And Rocks also KOs the Tentacruel, so at least now it can't come back in and do something, obnoxious like Icy Wind or Rainy Hydro or whatever. So, I mean, it's still going to be useful for Death Fodder, but it got a KO at least, effectively. So now here comes the Tina O, and will Byron have a switch into it? No, he Meteor Mashes, and that is a very fast Metagross, feels like, because a lot of Giratinas also hang out in that 240s range. That just above Jolly T-Tar and or plus speed T-Tar and Jirachi that outspeeds it range. A lot of 90s crowd around in there, especially because I think like the fastest they ever go to is like 254, I believe. Like in that like mid 250s range, absolute highest, because a lot of rock polished Groudons hit that range to outrun Scarfers. And sometimes they want to outspeed, Groudon before a Rock Polish and whatnot. So that's the absolute fastest. But Jolly Metagross hits 262, so it gets a jump on that as well. So yeah, that was cool to see. It gets the mash off on that, and now it has rocks, and Ray is in without rocks, so that's already a good start. So this Metagross is really setting the tempo for a brutal-looking offense team. And he's got T-Spikes, which are going to be nice, but of no use against Ray, and he hasn't even gotten rocks yet. So sack of, I don't know why he didn't sack Tentacruel there, because Tina is still going to be more useful than the Tentacruel that dies to rocks. I get that maybe he was afraid of setup, but I don't think Ray is going to set up early in the game, especially here. He's just, why bother setting up and risking it when you could just attack? I don't think the setup is going to help him more than just attacking here. At least not, proportionate to the amount of risk setting up entails. So, Dialga comes in, and now he still has a useless Tentacruel, and it's not even a setup. I guess it could still be like Draco DD and it has Outrage, but, realistically. Anyway, so now he's got, well, I guess if his plan was to follow up with Dialga, then it doesn't really matter what he sacks, because he was going to have to sack two things anyway. But I guess, if you sack Dialga, I don't know. I guess it depends on what Pokemon you want to have hanging around like half-ish health. Do you want to have the Dialga hanging around half-ish health or the Giratina? I personally would probably value Giratina because Shadow Sneak bypasses its 90 speed, and the fact that this is a support Dialga means it probably isn't too fast. So, but that's the decision that was made, and now Tentacruel is sacked. So if your plan was to follow up with that, so Rayquaza has ripped apart two Pokemon basically, or 2.5 Pokemon basically, and now here comes wow. And thanks to the Outrage mechanics, then Tentacruel resets it doesn't even reset the Outrage, it's not still locked in, and it's not even confused, so it gets an E-Speed off on the Chomp before it goes down. So that Ray's been putting in a ton of work this tournament. Ray and Ho have really been the superstars, and I love seeing it, especially because some people have slept on Ray for a while, just no defensive synergy, but good lord. Besides the Swift Swim thing, but yeah, that was great to see. So Chomp, D-Claw, very likely the Scarf Cleaner on this kind of team, and it locks into that. If it's SD, then it's still not going to break through Kyogre here. So whether it's a Scarf Kyogre or not, it's going to Ice Beam, and the Dialga is really chunked here, and so the only thing keeping him from potential Hydro, not from potential Hydro, from potential destruction is the fact that it's going to be poisoned. Yes, please keep playing, and I'll skip this ad. Anyway, so yeah, Hydra's barely comes up short. If this is Protect, then that'll get an extra poison thing on it, but it's not Protect. So, and the Kyogre is lefty, so that's mitigating the poison effect. We don't know what it is, but Hydro Ice Beam, probably offensive. And now HSA goes in and does use Thunder. So a lot of those lefties Kyogres are like Calm Mind Protect or Calm Mind T-Wave. And Calm Mind Protect, especially on a T-Spikes team, you could expect it reasonably to not have Thunder, and that would really have given HSA the advantage with Byron's Kyogre Poison, but he goes right for the Thunder, and Byron appears to not have the Thunder here, as he just roars the Kyogre out, and looks to scout the last. That was a good move. He's got a lot of Pokemon, he's got 3 unrevealed left, and he can, Rocks on Chomp. Well, it's not the Rocks on Chomp, that's nice and all, but it's more the force it to lock into something else and then take advantage of it with one of your last Pokemon. That's the idea. And if you reveal the last, you reveal the last. So that was a great roar from Byron. Really liked seeing that there. And the last could be, I assume it's probably like Calm Mind or something, just to win Calm Mind Wars. But Chomp does not lock into anything. Great move. That was a really nice move from HSA, actually, because... oh, and it looks like Byron's Kyogre is actually faster, so if he wants to leave it with a parting gift of Hydro, that's really nice, because then he's got the half-health Chomp and, roughly half-health Kyogre, and then the unrevealed against 3 unrevealed from Byron. And if the rest of them are offensive, as the Metagross and Rayquaza thus far have suggested, then, it would look pretty good, unless the last... the Garchomp is the last, is the cleaning last, if it's Scarf. As it clearly is, because he didn't want to lock into anything against 3 unrevealed Pokemon. So that was a great move from HSA, but yeah, Byron's definitely looking like he's got the advantage here. So he misses the Hydro. That really, really sucks. But and HSA just finishes him off with Surf. So it's, but it still should be a fine position. But the T-Spikes carry a lot. as Groudon comes in. So not the most ideal Kyogre switch, but it is going to have a big, powerful Earthquake with Life Orb at that, and it just barely does not come through, and it's basically going to go down alongside Kyogre. As, yeah, so, well, it now forces the reveal of the last or a Chomp to lock into something. So, trading Groudon for Kyogre and some, more information is really good. And it's Jirachi, and it protects. Okay, so if there's any Pokemon, having Scarf Chomp and Wish Protect Jirachi against two offensive Pokemon is generally a pretty good bet. Those two are famous for their anti-offense capabilities, and Mewtwo is last. And it's also poison, so the combination gets even better. So even if this is Sunny Fire, and which it's not guaranteed, with the Kyogre, then it's still not guaranteed, and Jirachi can... Actually, I don't remember if it's Flamethrower, which I think is awful, then it can definitely live. It's more the Fire Blast that's the one you gotta watch out for. Yeah, okay, and Sun Fire Blast definitely KOs, but Flamethrower does not. So he looks like he doesn't have either. I mean, Fire Blasting into Chomp would not have been bad. Calm Minding does nothing to help with that, so that was clearly a desperation. I mean, he looks like he doesn't really have much for the Jirachi anymore, especially with the T-Spikes. And he just U-turns into the Scarf Chomp and just attacks, and he goes for Outrage. And the last is a Jirachi of his own, so another Dragon Absorber, so, that's definitely fair. And, but he U-turns and doesn't Iron Head or Body Slam at least? I don't know why that was the move. Like, is U-turn really his only attacking option? Well, if that's the case, and it is he does get the 3-turn Outrage and Chomp confuses, but now it looks like it's going to be a stall war between these two. Okay, so we're gonna speed this up a little as Wish, U-turn, flinch. Now, Jirachi has expended slightly more PP, and it is faster, and its Iron Heads also have the chance to save Byron some PP because of the flinch rate. So it would appear that that Byron has the PP advantage, and all he has to do is keep enough attack PP. I don't know if the last is. No, the last isn't Rocks. He's got it on his Metagross. I don't know if it's like T-Wave or something weird that can't touch Chomp. I mean, if U-turn is the best option, then it's probably like that. Maybe like Healing Wish or something, but I mean, I don't think you can do that at this point. So, but all he has to do is keep U-turn PP and keep out of EQ range. And EQ range against Jirachi is going to be... I mean, it's pretty high. Yeah, so, but if you can stay at max HP, which shouldn't be hard against, this Jirachi that's not doing any damage, then, yeah, just, I don't know why he's not using that last move. Because think about it like this, if the last move is really so useless that you can't use it against Chomp, then why not use it against Jirachi? Maybe if it's Healing Wish or something, but I actually don't know how Healing Wish works if it is the last Pokemon. I've never had that come up because it's not. I don't know if it's like Explosion, and you just like faint and lose the game. So that could be it, I guess. I mean, that'd be a cool set, Wish, Protect, U-turn, Healing Wish. But yeah, the thing is that HSA would like to He would like to wish on. He would like to wish Garchomp up because then he definitely wins. But the problem is, of course, that if he U-turns, every time HSA uses Wish, then Byron should use U-turn on the following turn just so he cannot Wish to the Chomp. So, Chomp comes in. I don't know why he wished. Well, no. That was a good move. Sorry, because HSA did not Wish on the previous turn. He protected on the. So let's go back a couple. So yeah, on this turn, then HSA goes for Iron Head, and then he protects. And then he U-turns to Chomp, but I mean that's fine because Chomp doesn't get the Wish. So I mean he can't even go for the EQ there because I mean I guess if Byron wanted he could have just risked it because he was at 93, so probably 92 point something, and he could have just risked going for the for the favorable roll, but HSA doesn't risk it, and now he's back in the same position. So I guess by using U-turn with his Jirachi, he saved himself some PP on those 2 turns, but it's still not looking great. So now he's got Well, what he's got to do is, well, he can't even chip Byron into EQ range reliably. I mean, he's got a lot of iron heads. Well, not so many now anymore. But it would be really unlikely that for him to, unless Byron messes up a lot, that it would be really unlikely for him to be able to iron head Byron into range and then like iron head him into a range where he's not going to use Wish and he's going to be. He's not, because I mean, if he's not, you have to like get him in on a protect, or you have to iron head him to like 70 or something, and then hard switch to Garchomp on a protect, because he's only using U-turn, Wish, and protect, and U-turn nullifies the Garchomp switch, and Wish definitely nullifies the Garchomp switch, because Garchomp only gets one more switch into Rocks if you don't Wish to it, and every time you Wish, then Byron is forced into U-turn. So, and he doesn't have, infinite wishes either. Byron's got a lot of U-turns, but if you just don't use them unless you... I guess he doesn't have infinite wishes left either, though. He's only got 3. So there's another U-turn. Here comes Chomp again. Well, now here's the moment of truth, because I don't know why he wouldn't just protect here and force himself out of range. But he doesn't, and he gets the unfavorable roll. Oh my goodness. I don't know why he wouldn't just protect there. I really don't. I mean... I guess if and that's going to be the series, because it's a 25% chance to KO from 92, so we assume he's like a little, like roughly 25, right? So, a 75% chance you live, little less because of crit. But, yeah, I don't know, I didn't protect, because even, I guess like that saves PP for, well, I guess, well, if you can't use the last move because it's Healing Wish and it feints you, then I guess HSA was probably winning anyway because he's got 28 U-turn PP, which is more than the 3 moves Jirachi's revealed at all. So I assume the last move you just couldn't use because it's Healing Wish or something. So I guess that was a... I don't know. It really depends. So I guess he was probably losing the PP war anyway, and he had to hope that he lived the EQ so he could get a U-turn off rather than, because if he protects, then that's another protect PP burned, and then HSA can switch to Jirachi after, and then he has one more PP waste against the Byron Jirachi because he can switch to Chomp and sack it. But yeah, I guess that was his rationale. I'll probably live, and this saves me PP in the eventual PP war. But there's a good chance HSA was going to out-PP him anyway. So that was a real roller coaster of a series. So thank you very much to both players for playing. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in round 2.